Hi, welcome to Quid Pros Quo. I'm Zac.
And I'm Rin.
And today we have a guest star with us, Amelia, to talk to us about fan fiction. Introduce yourself, Amelia.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Amelia. You don't know me, I don't know you, but this is going to be a lot of fun.
Love that. We have a few, get-to-know-you questions first. What are your favorite fandoms to write fanfiction for? Because when you pitched me this episode, I just assumed you write fanfiction and you don't just read it.
I do. I have over 300,000 words of fanfic currently online. I have a problem. A good problem, though. Mainly, I kind of hyperfixate on one fandom at a time for a year or two. I've mostly written in the Avatar, The Last Airbender fandom, and the Batman fandom. But when I first started out, I would write in the BBC Merlin TV show fandom.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
I grew up watching that show. Love it. Mwah, love it. And then we've been asking our guests for a hot take on writing, fandoms, reading, etc. So do you have a hot take for us?
Yes, for reading fanfic, I recommend you use tags. So this is very, very niche, but basically on any fanfic website, you have the option to filter what kind of content you want in your book. So if you don't want any sexual content, you can filter that out. If you want it, you can put it in. I don't know why I used that as an example, but it came to mind. But if you want a certain ship or a certain couple to get together, you can also search that. It makes it really fun and easy to find good content.
Nice. Good tip, because I don't really do fan fiction.
We were discussing the other day about the last time that we wrote fanfic, and the last time I legitimately wrote fanfic was in third or fourth grade, I think. And then again as a high school senior, but that was for an assignment. And I don't think I've done it since then.
You can tell that we're writers because we wrote fanfiction for an assignment. Non-writers don't do that. But yeah, we're talking about fanfiction. What exactly is fanfiction? Do you want to define it for us?
For sure. So fanfiction to me is essentially creative writing, but you're borrowing characters, setting, or plot from a different franchise. And so the medium can be pretty much anything. It can be poetry, songs. I've seen audiobooks, actually, of fanfic. And mostly it is narrative. Mm-hmm. So in short, that's kind of what it is. But
cool.
Very cool. Good to know. And how did you get started with writing fanfic?
So my roommates actually got it into me. I never touched it growing up, but freshman year of college, they kind of found me, put me in a room, said, "You're not leaving until you read these fics." And I was like, okay, I can do that if it's this or death, and I actually really enjoyed it. And they made me finish watching the Merlin series. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you've finished it, but the ending will cut your heart out. Yeah. And so I was, grief-stricken and upset, and so I wrote a 20,000-word fanfic as my grieving process, put it online. I kind of just fell in love with the community. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that ever since. So I blame my roommates.
That is so fair. One thing I admire about fanfiction writers is their output, because they just churn words out like nobody's business.
It's scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
So how do you do it? How do you pump out that many words?
I don't believe I am quite as incredible as some authors. I know some people who will post 20,000 every other week, and I don't know how they do that. I'm like, you have a job, right? But for me personally, I get really excited about what I'm writing about. I can really just relax and write without worrying about the quality, which sounds really bad, but it does help me get over a lot of my anxiety about good prose when I can just have fun with the idea. And luckily the fanfic community is very supportive. I have never had anyone be critical of my writing online in this fandom. It's all been very supportive. No one's going to be like, you use too many semicolons. Literally, I don't think this is a very good fit for you. You should try something else. No, there's none of that. And so it's very encouraging to write fan fiction because you can find a good group of people who just want to support you and be your cheerleaders. And so that's the main reason I can output a lot, is because I feel motivated and, excited about what I can write.
So the social aspect is really important in prompting that output and being able to write like there's no tomorrow, and write without the inner editor going nobody likes this, nobody will love it.
Yeah, the only editor I have is the one in my head.
Yeah.
Because when I write original fiction, which I do, then I always worry about how is it going to come across, will my idea be understood? And when you share original fiction, at least for me, I feel like the feedback I get is either this is good or how are you going to improve this? And I'm like, that is not what I wanted from you. Thank you, but my heart now hurts.
Mm-hmm.
So fan fiction is a lot less stressful for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're talking a lot about the community aspect, and we talked a lot about community on the podcast recently. And we also just recorded an episode on social media. And we have this question about, like, where do you post fanfic? And, like, how do you, like, I guess, how do you get discovered with your fanfic? Because it's not like, there's no, like, scrolling through fanfic the way you scroll through TikTok.
You can. I do not recommend it because if you just type in the fandom you want and search, you'll get a million search results and no way to understand what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
I generally post on AO3, Archetype of Our Own, and Tumblr.
Mm-hmm.
So short things like a 200-word little blurb I'll put on Tumblr because it's really short. But any longer project I'll put on AO3. It's one of the biggest fanfic communities out there. It's really well organized. It's free. You can make an account, and it's just super easy to get into. You can keep track of your comments. You can tell how many people are subscribed to you, how many hits you have on your fic, like how many people are reading it. And it's just really good for keeping track of things. So I have an unhealthy amount of bookmarks and things I revisit. And yeah, so that's generally how I do it. There's also lots of Discord groups that meet up. I'm not really part of any. And yeah, there's a big social aspect I'm not even involved with yet.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah, it's always like, when you're like down bad, right?
Mm-hmm. It's like, oh no, this is getting to be a bigger problem than before.
So you've already talked about how the community aspect of fan fiction works to help ease the writing process. Could you speak to some of the differences that you see in the community around writing fan fiction versus the community of writing original fiction?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think the main difference is expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So Rin and I were in the same creative writing class. We've been to lots of events together. And I think it's a good common theme of original work writers is that they are very concerned with quality and the finished product. And, there's a lot more work that goes into it, I feel like. And that's not discrediting fan fiction, but fan fiction borrows a lot of things. It borrows characters, it borrows setting, borrows world building. And so it kind of changes how you approach storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get your fanfic, like, not critiqued, but when someone reads your fanfic, they already know a lot of background material, and so they don't have as many questions regarding that as much.
Mm-hmm.
Additionally, back to expectations as well, when I go to a critique group for my novels I'm working on, then I'm usually asking for, does this flow right? Is the tension good? Does my character come across well? When I'm writing fan fiction, then I kind of want to see their gut reactions, the emotional things. Was this joke funny? Do they like the idea? Do they know where this is going? I don't really worry about, the nuts and bolts of writing as much, and the readers don't have this expectation to, give feedback and expect an edit to come back later.
Mm-hmm.
I think a couple times I've gotten like, you should edit that typo. It's kind of really bad. I'm like, oh, yeah, that ask needs a K, not an extra S.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to kind of summarize what you just said, it seems like the fanfic community is a little bit more focused on process, and the original fiction community is a little bit more focused on product, as sort of like destination versus journey. Is that kind of the vibe?
Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty fair. Yeah. One thing about original fiction is that they want you to finish the work and put it out there and revise it and put your heart and soul into it, which is great. Fanfic communities, because it's not professional, people will just not finish their work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can find this amazing, beautiful piece of literature, and I'm going to call it literature. They'll post like 50,000 words of it, and then just one day you'll never hear from them again, and they'll just stop uploading. And it's one thing heartbreaking, also frustrating. And so fans get really good at being nice because they want more content. They're like, I really want to see more of this. Please put more of this online.
Yeah.
And just in the hopes that someday it'll come back, and it doesn't always, but, I've gotten really good at just enjoying what's already out there and not having expectations for more,
Mm-hmm.
because then I would always be sad and unhappy because you don't always get what you want.
Yeah.
That checks out. What do you see as, like, the pros and cons of writing fanfiction? Like, you've talked a lot about the pros. Are there any cons, do you think?
Yeah, the pros I think I've already covered a lot. Cons, there's definitely a social stigma against it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a lot of writers who are kind of embarrassed to say they write fan fiction. I've lost all my shame, and so that's why I'm here. But definitely when I first heard of fan fiction, I was like, I don't want to touch that. I've heard bad things about, really cringy self-insert stories, and, it's kind of a joke in some communities. But, once I got into it, I realized this is really valid, and it's a great way to get into exploring something that, ideas and characters, and just practice writing for the joy of it. And, there's not really a high chance you're going to, turn your fanfic into a novel like 50 Shades of Grey did. You kind of just write it because you like to write it, and so it takes a lot of pressure off. But it does get hard sometimes to be honest with people, like, what do you write? It's like, well, I have a 50,000 word fanfic of one of Batman's Robins. Do you want to read this?
Yeah.
But, once you get over that, then you can find a lot of good friends. It's just that initial push against that. You see the same thing in, fantasy genre writing, where someone's like, you write Pulp Fiction? Oh, that's not real writing. It's like, yes, it is. Anything you put on paper is real writing.
Yeah, I love that.
It has letters. It's written.
Exactly.
Yeah, you just, totally nailed the next question I was going to ask about, whether you wanted to speak to the debate about, whether fanfiction is real writing or not, and I'm putting that in air quotes for people who aren't in the room. But, you've called it literature, you said it's real writing. I really like your emphasis on the joy of fanfiction. I think that's really important.
Do you have any idea where the stigma comes from around fanfic if you were just going to be armchair expert?
Yes, well, according to my professional opinion, I think it comes from, I wouldn't say college, but the academia around literature in general.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in a lot of classes where the first term semester teacher says, what constitutes a good book? And either they'll tear that up or they'll really lean on that, what makes good literature. And in creative writing as well, there's this kind of expectation for literary fiction to be like the academic standard, where if you write some really postmodern short story about two people arguing in a car over a cat or something, that is peak literature. But writing about dragons and elves and adventure is kind of lesser. And I like, me and Rin had good professors who push back against that and say, write what you love, which I think is really great. But there is a problem, in any form of literature and writing where someone wants to feel superior, and so they'll decide that one genre is better than the others, and they'll put down the rest. That's not really true. It's all about personal preference and what you like. And if we're going to throw hands about fanfic not being real, a lot of classic literature is just remakes of Greek legends or of different stories. Lord of the Rings is a Beowulf fanfiction.
Right.
You find it everywhere.
Yeah.
Narnia is Bible fanfiction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I recently read a book about fan fiction, and that was something that the author pointed out, is that when you think about what fan fiction is at its core, you can look around and be like, okay, well, you have Homer, right? You have Shakespeare, who's engaging in fanfic. You even, you can keep going. You can name all of these different people where it's like, you're all engaging in fanfic to one degree or another, even if it's not perhaps as obvious as saying, this is a story about, Draco and Hermione kind of thing. It's still part of writing, and it's part of how we tell stories being human, right?
Exactly. There's no real original content when you get down to the end of the day. It's just all about how you remix it. So saying, this is a retelling of Hades and Persephone. No, that's your fanfic of Hades and Persephone. You just changed a few details.
I feel a little called out. I was thinking about how my first book is technically Alice in Wonderland fanfiction. I've never thought of it like that before. Every 3 to 6 months, that thought will pop up. I'm like, you just wrote really long fanfic and published it. I'm like, yeah. That's all I got.
No, for real. Where's the line between retelling and fan fiction? It's really blurry.
I think it's the 90-year copyright. Yeah. I don't know if I have any more questions. I feel like you've answered all my questions really well.
Let's say, so we recently wrapped up a series on getting started with writing. Let's say that we have a listener who is intrigued by fanfic, maybe as a dirty little secret, maybe as something that they want to try. What's something that they should keep in mind as they get started?
I think just at the end of the day, it should be fun. I mean, in all my writing, even with fanfic, I reached a point where I'm terrified that I'll disappoint a reader or that it won't be good enough. But I really had to pull back and realize, no, I'm writing this for me, and I should be excited for the next chapter. Even if, I'm picky about quality, the end result is fan fiction is something you do usually for free because it makes you happy about something. And so whether you're trying to find good things to read or start, getting subscribers for your little account in the corner of the internet. At the end of the day, even if you only get one view and it's yourself clicking on the page, then it counts, and the whole process was for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so don't be nervous about, trying to build a fanfic empire or trying to find amazing readers or you're not getting enough comments. Just pull back and think about, why am I really doing this? Is it, if you're doing original fiction, do you want to get published? Yes, that's an end goal, but you should have fun writing first. And fanfic, because you're not going to be paid, really makes you focus on that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that so much. I've loved your emphasis on enjoying the journey and in the writing process. I think that's something I definitely need to rekindle in my writing. So thank you so much, Amelia, for coming on the show.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, of course.
Where can our listeners find your stuff, whether original or fanfic?
AO3 Batman Crack fanfic. I'm not giving any more details because you have my public name.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Amelia, and thank you to our listeners for joining us. We will see you next time. Quid Pros Quo is hosted by DC Winters and CK Jensen. If you like this episode, be sure to leave us a rating. And if you'd like to contact us, you can email us at quidprosquo@gmail.com. For more episodes, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever else you get your podcasts.